Hi, this is Nick from Data Science and AI Divisions, GovTech. In these sessions, we will look at introductions to natural language processing, NLP in short. After going through the Udemy sessions, you will have seen how NLP can be applied to detect spam emails from the rest of the emails. And in the project, you will also have your chance to get your hand dirty on how to apply NLP in order to classify whether a review about the business is whether good review or bad review. This video is meant to complement the contents for the Udemy course. What we're going to do here is take a step back and see whether is the main use case for NLP is for classify text or documents. From here, you will see it is not. The use case of NLP is a lot wider than just creating classification systems. Now let's see what is NLP. As you see here, natural language processing is the field that focus very much on giving the computer the ability to understand the human language. So combine the rules-based modeling of how human language works, such as grammars, grammatical rules, with mathematics, statistics, and of course, machine learning. It helps the computer to process text or voice data in order to understand its meaning. NLP is a very big topic. So itself is a field of study where you can find courses out there that focus entirely just on NLP. So one way to look at NLP is by the different tasks that it can help us to achieve. So there are a few here that we have seen before. Classifications, that is where we use NLP to help us to detect spam email versus the other emails. And we have keyword extraction, so that's to extract the meaningful text or keywords from a paragraph or an entire article. So of course, the well-known chatbots is also under NLP. And what are the different things that we've never talked before, including text-to-text generations? That is where NLP, which is the AI type of NLP, can use to generate novel and write story. NLP is one of the fastest evolving topics in machine learning and AI. New approaches are introduced almost every 3 to 5 years, and model becoming bigger and bigger, and of course it becomes much more complicated than ever. So if you look in the past 20 years, every 3 to 5 years, a totally new model or a way to approach natural language processing problem has been emerged in every 3 to 5 years. If you're interested to read out how these major changes or major approach in language processing, you can access this article to read about each of these major eras. To give a picture of how massive or how complicated the models are, you can see these are different major models created by the major players in natural language processing, such as Facebook, Microsoft, and of course, NVIDIA. You can see these are x-axis are the different years, and the y-axis are the number of parameters in the unit of million. So you can see at 2021, this Turing NLG has 17,000 million parameters. It's a very huge model. So you can see the models has been developed very comprehensively over time, and they may employ totally different approach to tackle natural language processing problems. Despite the fact that the state-of-the-art models become very complicated and they are very massive, the underlying concepts about natural language processing still apply. So what we learn here are very important foundations for us to continue further learning into natural language processing. For this session, we are being very focused. So we will focus on applying natural language processing for some very common text analytic tasks. So we are aware not everyone would use NLP for classification or predictions. So we focus on those common tasks that are much more relevant to everyone. So these are some of the tasks that we will look at in the subsequent sessions. So part of speech tagging, nouns phrase extraction, synonym, which is looking for similar words, language detections to detect whether it's English or any other languages, spelling corrections. So there's a common problem in text-based data where the spelling of the words or text are incorrect. So there are tools or mechanisms that we can use to correct the spelling. So sentiment analysis, that is about deciding whether a chunk of text or paragraph or an article is having positive sentiment or having negative sentiment. So the last one that we will see is, of course, classifications. That is to train out a classification system or model that can help us to decide or classify it into the predefined labels that we have created. In many of the tasks that we will work on later on, we will use this package called TextBlock. And here we will look at what is TextBlock and why we are using this. It is a simplified text message processing package that is very simple or very easy to use. So basically, anyone who is familiar with Python will be able to start using this package. The objects that offered by these tag blocks, such as its property and methods, are very similar to basic Python's objects, such as list, dictionary, tuple that we have learned previously. So this package is made or built on top of NLTK, which is the package that we have used during the Udemy sessions. It offers a set of tools that can be used to tackle very common NLP tasks or problems. This is a great tool because many of the times we don't want to deal with the details and the technical complexity in order to just achieve certain simple tasks. So for example, you want to detect the language of this paragraph. Do you need to train the whole classification model in order to detect whether this is English or this is Mandarin or this is Malay article in order to do your further task and analysis? So that can be very tedious. So those are the things that we can rely on package like this rather than do it from ground up. So back to the point, most of the people would rather focus on the applying and try to get the result fast and to focus on their main task rather than the underlying technical uh, and the calculation behind the scene. So this package offers a great way to do that. In order to use the package, we need to install it first because it doesn't come along with the Anaconda installer that we have been using. So you can run these two cells here within your Jupyter Notebook, pip install TextBlock and Python -m TextBlock download Cobra. That is to download some additional data that is required by the package. So this is how we import the TextBlock from TextBlock import tag blocks. So we would cover this in our Jupyter Notebook demo in a bit. For now, it will be just a quick view on how to install this additional package into your environment. The idea of using this TextBlock package is you first grab your role text, which is like this, which is any text. It can be paragraph, it can be articles, or it can be as simple as just a single sentence. And you store in a variable, and then you pass it to this text block object. So now you have an instance of your text block. We will just call it block as a variable name. And then this block object that you have, or you will have access to all the methods and property come from this text block package. Okay, this further explain it. When we did that, it transformed our raw text into analyzable object. So this object is aware of words and sentences. So words and sentences are special properties in this package. Each of these words and sentence object in turn would has its own methods and property that we can use to transform the text and analyze the text. Looking at this quick example, you can see this is a paragraph with multiple sentences. Now we pass into this text block object and store the block object into this variable. Now if we type words, we can see all the individual words has been separated out and stored in the form of list. And this list is very similar to Python's original list object. So those methods that apply to list also applicable here, such as extend, find, pop that we have used in the past. Those are the methods that can be used with this block object as well. So for sentences, if we do that, you can see it's a list of 3 sentences here. So using what we have learned in the past, we know that when we have a list of elements, we can use for loop or other loop methods to go through each of these items within the list and process them accordingly. The very first task that we can do with this tag blocks package is to tag the part of speech. So for any given sentence or paragraph, it will able to extract the tag, which is what you see here, whether it is a pronouns, whether it is a verbs, whether it is nouns in plural form, and whether it is adjective, it can tag to every single words accordingly. So given the earlier examples, we can see when we use this property called POS stand for part of speech underscore tags, it will help us to tag each of the words in our sentence accordingly. So you can use this reference table here to find out what is the meaning of the tag that you see. So NNP, for example, we can refer to here, which is a proper nouns, singular. So for example, these are the example Harrisons. Very much related to the first task, the second task is called noun phrases extraction. Noun phrases are basically any part of the speech patterns that have a noun in it. So these are very useful patterns that normally can help us to understand the context of the paragraph or an article. So they usually form the basis or the foundation for subsequent text analytics. So these noun phrases, they can include any part of the speech that make grammatical sense. For example, it's not just noun, it can include noun, and it can be also adjective nouns. For example, angry customer, or it can be word adjective noun. So you can see from this broad object, when we access the property called noun phrases, we can have access to the extracted noun phrases. Based on the given sentence just now, we have data champions as the first noun phrase, and the second noun phrase is 6 months training course, which are very useful nouns or keywords, you would say, being extracted from the single sentence that we have. Let's look at the next task, spelling corrections. In text-based data, one of the very common dirty data is the wrongly spelled text or words. If these words with incorrect spelling is not pre-processed or is not handled properly, the text will not be able to understood by the machine learning model or language models. TextBlock offer a very convenient and easy way to use their methods to correct misspelled words or text. So now let's focus on the right hand side here. Before we correct the spelling of a paragraph or a sentence, it's worth detecting whether this is English, because not just English using alphabets, right? So one of the very useful package to do that is LangDetect. So again, this is additional package that we need to install. So as it can be done as simple as just run this line of code within your Jupyter notebook. And then with this line to import the package, you can see how to use it is very straightforward. We have this single sentence here. I think the analysis is good. There are 2 spelling errors, things and good. So once you put in this text and pass it to the detect method, it can tell you that this is an English sentence. With that, you can confidently correct the spelling errors. So again, the same sentence, we pass into text block, so we get the block objects, then just call these methods called correct. The next task is an interesting one. You can see sentiment analysis. This is the method or the process to detect whether a single text carry positive or negative sentiment. So given an example here, you can see my experience so far has been fantastic. And this is positive sentiment. And your support team is useless. And of course, this is negative. So it's impossible for us to human go through line by line and detect whether it's positive or negative. And it becomes very useful if the machine learning can help us to detect this. This method is often very used by businesses or organizations to detect the sentiment in their social data and also to understand their reputation, of course, to understand what their customers' sentiments over their products or services. After getting the sentiment tagging, which is either positive, neutral, or negative, we can do a lot more interesting analysis. For example, we can look at the overall sentiment, whether for a given product or for a given service, what is the proportion of positive and negative sentiments that has been extracted based on the reviews about the product or services. And we can also view the sentiment that change over time. So whether when we first launch a product, how's the sentiment was like, and how does the sentiment of our customers feedback these days. So one of the very useful way of sentiment analysis is to compare with the rating that the customer gave, because the rating itself is one perspective, while the sentiment normally can complement the rating for very useful analysis, which you will see in the Jupyter Notebook. Another very interesting usage of the sentiment analysis is after we extract the keywords, like the noun phrases that we did back in a few slides, then we can use those extracted keywords and see how are they related to the sentiment analysis. So whether or not whenever people talk about service A, they are more positive than negative sentiments, or when they talk about the customer service, what is associated with that, or when they talk about the warranty service, what are the usual sentiment being associated with the after self service. The next task is classifications. We won't go deep into this here since you have tried it. One thing that we want to point out here is beside creating classification model that can predict binary class such as spam versus non-spam, we can predict more than three different categories, and that is called multi-class. So three or more categories, for example, tech, entertainment, or politics, that can be used to classify whether a news article or a news itself is belong to which categories, right? So like we say, NLP is a massive field and there are many tasks that can be done by natural language processing, but of course we can't be covering them all here. And it's also almost impractical for ourselves to build every single models that we want to use, because some of these model may require huge number of data inputs, or they may require very advanced skills in NLP in order to build a proper model with decent performance. So why build from scratch or recreate the views while there are some existing services that we can use? So do have a look at GovText, which is the text analytics platform for WOG created by Data Science and AI divisions. There are a lot more advanced tasks that can be done by this platform that is not described in this training. For example, to do topic modeling. So for say, if you have a few thousand of reviews or comments from the citizens, you want to categorize them accordingly to different topics so that you can assign the different reviews to the different teams to follow up, right? So for example, when these mostly talk about services, apps, chromes, we know that this is probably a technical support tickets or reviews, so we can assign these to the relevant teams, for example. So there's a link here that you can watch the demo on how this platform works and what are the features that it has. Beside that, another tool is called Transcribe. It is a speech-to-text platform created by Data Science and AI from GovTech, and it provides speech-to-text services for many different scenarios. For example, interviews, speeches. If you want to find out more about this tool, feel free to click on the link here. You can see the demo on how this tool works and what are the capability that this tool has.